Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Nathan Fox. With me today is Sam Fraser. Sam, you got your test from the September 2022 LSAT back today. Today is the score release date, and you scored a what?
I scored a 179,
From a diagnostic of?
151 on my first official test.
On your first official test. Okay, do you remember a cold diagnostic at all?
Yeah, I actually scored a diagnostic of 158. Can I say what led to a 151? It was a different test prep company.
No, we're not naming other test prep companies. We bleep those out. But sorry, say the diagnostic again. I got lost for a sec.
I scored a diagnostic of 158.
158. Okay, and then down to a 151. Gotcha. And so yeah, total of 28-point improvement between your 151 first official test and then your fourth official test, which was a 179. Say a little bit about what that does for your prospects as an applicant.
Well, my dream from the start was to go to a mid-tier law school. After studying with Nadim a little bit, I realized that I could probably do a little bit better than that. Maybe even go to free to a mid-tier law school. Who would have thought?
Yep.
Now my goal is to actually go into Yale at this point, either Yale, Stanford, Harvard. So yeah, I'd say there's a bit of a difference there.
It's a huge difference. Do you have good undergrad grades?
Yep, I have just under 4.0.
Just under a 4.0. And yeah, I mean, a middling LSAT, you would have just been selling yourself wildly short, Sam. And I'm really glad that we got an opportunity to work with you because the sky's the limit. I mean, what's the key difference in understanding that, like, why did it work with us and it did not work elsewhere?
Well, I think the only major thing I would say is gimmicks, I guess. It's This test should really, I think, be about teaching people to just use their common sense. Because let's be honest, 90% of the questions can be answered perfectly fine with just using your common sense and not getting wrapped up in, oh no, this is the scary LSAT. I think if you apply that to it, your score is just going to instantly improve because if you're taking this test, you're probably smart enough to know what you're doing here. You don't need gimmicks trying to like mess you up and getting in the way of that.
Can you give an example of a gimmick and how it
Oh,
was
easy.
replaced? Sure.
Reading the question first on logical reasoning and diagramming. Those are diagramming on logic games and also logical reasoning. Those are some of the biggest things I walked into LSAT even doing. And as soon as I stopped doing that, it was just a dramatic score improvement of up to like 10 points.
So those are two separate things. So the first one, reading the question first on logical reasoning, you stopped doing that. And how did that change your performance on logical reasoning?
Well, it kind of led into another keystone of the demon philosophy is of predicting the answer. When I stopped thinking about, okay, what do I want to look for in this passage to answer this question, and instead looked at, well, what's wrong with this argument in the first place? And after I figure that out, I can answer any question they're going to give me. Once I did that, it kind of attacked the argument a lot better.
Yeah, you mentioned common sense. So how does common sense relate to that?
Well, common sense tells you that this argument is terrible, and that if you heard anyone in the streets or any politician making this argument, I can guarantee you would attack this argument knowing that it's wrong, and you wouldn't just think, oh, well, the LSAT says it, so I guess this makes sense. That's just not how it is in daily life. I think once people get out of that, this is the scary LSAT mindset, it becomes so much easier.
Yeah. So then the second thing that you were saying is a gimmick that just didn't help you. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you think it actually diminished your ability to do the test.
Yes.
The reading the question first, logical reasoning, which I agree, I hate it. The second thing was the diagramming on the games. And I think what you meant was diagramming the rules a lot.
Yeah, so the dreaded C word, the contrapositives even on logic games rules. Everything, every rule I was diagramming. I still remember arrows upon arrows upon arrows and dot dot dots and all of that. Sure, it's helpful on your typical web game, but beyond that, it's so much easier just to do worlds and everything like that and just to ace the game in like under 5 minutes every time.
Yeah. How could you explain worlds to someone who's never heard that idea before? What would you say? What is worlds?
Worlds is, I suppose it's a method, but ultimately it's a concept, a strategy of making the game simpler. You're just playing a simpler game overall. You're just kind of eliminating the rules.
Right. Relate it to common sense.
Well, how would, if your boss put that on your table, what would you do with it? You wouldn't, okay, let me write this arrow to this player. You wouldn't do that. You would design mini scenarios and you would figure the game out. Use your common sense. You're going to figure the problem out. Just act like this is a real world scenario and just use your common sense.
Yeah, like the puzzles themselves, the logic games themselves are like, okay, well, we everybody has to be on either the tennis team or the golf team, and then there's some restrictions about if so and so's on the tennis team, then the other guy has to be on the golf team. And the super heavy-handed way to do it is to write, it's like this weird dogmatic way that you never would have thought of, but then whatever LSAT prep you took taught you to like, oh, if L's on the tennis team, then G has to be on the golf team. Okay, so now if L, then G, then the contrapositive of that rule. And instead, in Demon World, what would you do differently?
Well, I would make scenarios where this is the case and this is not the case. It's what I
Yeah.
would do if I was presented with this problem at my job.
In real life, you'd be like, well, okay, so L's either on tennis or golf. So I'll start with that. L could be on tennis, L could be on golf. And then what was the rule now? Oh, if L's on tennis, then so and so has to be on golf. Okay. And then you would just write that in and you'd be done with it. You'd never have to think about it again because it would just be like two ways that L can be satisfied and you're moving on to the next rule. That's fantastic. What else do you have to share with listeners, viewers who are interested in making the kind of improvement that you made?
Like I said, the biggest, it's just a philosophy. It's not learn this one simple trick, doctors will hate it. It's not like that type of gimmicky ad that you see everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because it's all over the place in different test prep companies. It's use your common sense. The demon teachers here are going to help you understand how to use your common sense and to apply it. But ultimately, it's up to you. Just treat it like it's your daily life, and it's not this scary test that determines your entire future.
Yeah, I think fitness is just such a great, uh, analogy. Like if you're gonna have fitness, you don't need to do it 12 hours a day, and in fact, that's bad for you. And you just need to kind of chip away at it, right? You do a little bit every day if you can.
Yep. You also don't need those influencer crazy workout videos where you do 10,000 different exercises and you move your body parts in some weird way. Stick to the basics. You're going to do so much better, I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, Sam. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. Listeners, if you want to be like Sam, or you want to ask questions about Sam's progress, email daily at lsatdemon.com. Love to hear from the audience. Thanks for listening.